What's up, y'all? This is Ken from the Make Me Wanna Holler podcast, and you're watching The Raw Report.
We good. You ready?
We ready.
Okay, we ready. Let me get up in here and look, everybody. I hope y'all can hear me. Make sure I got everything. Yeah, I'm good. This dude I got up here tonight, I've been trying for maybe a year to get my man on. About a year?
Yeah, just about a year.
About a year, right?
Yep.
I've been trying for a year. I got him here, and you're gonna want to hear from him. My man Denzel's in the house. What's good, brother?
What's up, Rob? How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Now take your mic right and put it so it's
How's this?
perfect right there.
Perfect.
So we was talking before we got on, and we discussed a few things, and we're going to get into it tonight. What is the psychological influence on culture?
So I would say that can be looked at from several different perspectives, and I think looking at the root causation of let's say leaving the civil rights era of the late 60s and looking at the origination of the black power, and I'm a huge advocate for black power.
Okay.
And lots of that has been formulated from there and carried down into generations. However, the actual initiative of the black power movement, it did some justice. You know, it helped rid Jim Crow laws.
Right.
Despite blacks were still able to perform as they should under Jim Crow law. For example, post Jim Crow law rather. For example, who's one of my mind's leaving me at the moment. One of the first black, Reginald Lewis, to seal a $1 billion deal overseas as a black man post Jim Crow. So despite the Jim Crow having an effect on several of us in regards to the laws limiting us through segregation and not being able to use bathrooms and water fountains or restaurants, I believe that psychological culture started then, which then resulted in where we are now, and people carrying that on in regards to the blaming the system philosophy or blaming the white man philosophy or anything else outside of blaming the white man or the system. It's deemed as you are less than from your own peers, such as your Uncle Tom, your coon, your house Negro,
right,
Negro Peon, the whole 9 yards. So I do believe that it stemmed from there. There was lots of good towards that, lots of good, and you see that good being displayed in today's society. However, like many movements, there tends to be some type of influence that hijacks that, whether it be through monetary funds or through some type of other political influence, and race hustlers who tend to push forward this victimization ideology that says we can't be anything in this country unless we bow down to this type of system and betray our own, which isn't the reality.
Okay.
You know, so what I would say is everything originated from the 60s. One of the things that bothers me is some fact is that I don't know how we feel as though, at least my generation, how we feel as though we are carrying on those troubles from the 60s and 70s, when in reality that's not the case at all.
So we shouldn't even be worrying about what happened in the 60s.
I think if we're going to look at history as something that can be looked upon and help us push forward, I think we need to do just that. I don't think we need to dig up the grave of our ancestors and previous laws that might have been a barrier for us.
Right.
I think doing that now in today's society creates this culture of hatred. You know, because in 2020 you're not seeing segregation laws that are causing a barrier from us being successful. None at all. What laws are in place at this time?
Are we now? I do hear a lot of people reference us to still being slaves. Are we still slaves?
If you want to believe that. Do you feel like you're a slave?
No.
Do you feel like you can't be anything in this world? If any person were to put themselves in a position to being able to create a trajectory as a field of moving forward, based off of where you come from. Like, for example, my grandfather, born in the late 1930s, he was born in Forsyth, Georgia, and they lived on a cotton field.
Right.
And he actually passed away in 2015 at 85 years old. And this man was beyond brilliant. Beyond brilliant. He co-founded Houston Community College in the 60s, invited down Martin Luther King. He had discussions with Malcolm X, had his views on him because he was a little bit too radical, from his words. However, he was able to use his past pain and push forward. Nowadays, we're using our past pain and not pushing forward. We're blaming some other entity for the causation as to why we can't move forward. And compared to my ancestors living on cotton fields and not being able to push forward, I would be highly ignorant to say that I can't push forward with the opportunities I have in today's society.
Right.
There's so many opportunities, so many, and it's almost as though there's this psychological type of movement that's pushing forward, like this conditioning that and even social influence by your peers as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you and I are in a movie theater and maybe two other folks and we're clapping at a scene that shouldn't be clapped at, there's gonna be folks in the back of us clapping as well because of social influence. And we're seeing that now in today's society, that everyone wants to be a victim. And one of my favorite psychologists says that once you regard yourself as a victim, you start looking for a perpetrator. Why not look within yourself as a perpetrator?
Right.
And
so does that fit around like accountability?
Huge. And I believe what we are seeing is some fact is that, and this is my hypothesis, is that the self-hatred and the identity crisis that's running through the veins of the black community is being pushed on to the masses and being misconstrued in the sense that it is a system or a ethnic group that's causing us to not push forward. Now, why, instead of blaming the system, why not blame your parents for those issues? One of the quotes I just mentioned, Jordan Peterson says that the way to full maturity is to find what they lost as a child. How many of those folks are complaining about a system, are finding what they lost as a child, are deeply trying to understand what it is that became a barrier as to why we cannot push forward? Right. Like, why is that? Why is accountability something that we seem to not grasp onto? But blaming an entity or another ethnic group is something we thrive off of.
So you don't want to hear the white man this and kept me down and all.
Never. I mean, when you carry a sentiment to say the white man,
right,
you're putting him at a superior level, and you're putting blacks at this inferior level, as though we cannot make it out. And we've seen people make it out. Madam C.J. Walker, post-Emancipation Proclamation of 1863. Reginald Lewis, great minds like Thomas Sowell, who was thrown on someone's porch, and he had no idea of his identity, and has been deemed as one of the most contemporary philosophers in the 20th century. Like I don't get it. Like, as privileged as we are today, and the fact that our ancestors have went through so many trials and tribulations, how can you not look at their troubles and say, I want to move forward in life?
Right.
What are you so caught on?
Right.
And it makes me think. And those are some things that we need to have discussions about.
Can you give it to our guests here?
Thank you. Those are discussions we need to talk about, Rob. And it's not something we want to really dabble in. Criticism towards our own communities is not something that's being discussed about. That's frowned upon. It's like everyone wants to be coddled to actually, as though they're infants, and this thank you, as though they're infants who are needing of this type of love, which we are.
Right. So you think all that's going on in the country right now? Do you like Black Lives Matter, mm-hmm. The racial tension? I don't know if you could say it started after George Floyd. Mm-hmm. Do you think it was before George Floyd? So
I do believe that the racial tension that's being pushed out into the masses is something that's been part of it's always been there, I would say. Right. But it's more in the light due to a minority group such as Black Lives Matter. And I'm not saying what their true intentions were to shine light upon police brutality against blacks. However, the origination of it was the acquittal of George Floyd. The acquittal of George Zimmerman, who was half Hispanic. I think his father was Peruvian. Right. So and it had nothing to do with police brutality.
So you don't really subscribe to Black Lives Matter?
Absolutely not. And the reason being is for that, mainly because of the fact that there are so many sociological problems running through the veins of the black community that's outside of police brutality. So many. I believe the police have 10 million arrests a year. About 1,000 of them are actually where victims are brutally injured or killed, which makes it, I believe it's like for every one in 300,000 person, a black person is killed. So I think last year roughly 5 unarmed blacks were killed by the police, and roughly maybe 22 were white. I did see that the New York Times was playing with the numbers, even with the Department of Justice, where it went from like 5 to 9 or even to like 10. But still, with the amount of police interactions a year to 10 million arrests a year,
okay,
along with the 1,000 that are killed by the police a year, along with the small, and one death is too many, along with the small number of unarmed blacks that are killed, it makes anyone, the equivalent to someone that's unarmed being killed by the police is equivalent to being struck by lightning.
Really?
Being struck by lightning.
So you're more likely to get struck by lightning than you are to get killed by police?
Absolutely.
As a black person, I mean.
As a black person, as a Hispanic person, as a white person. Let me ask you this. How many people listening to this show right now can name one white person that was killed by the police that was unarmed?
Right.
You know, Kelly Thomas, Daniel Shaver. You know, and I truly do believe, and our police do need some type of more training.
Okay.
You know, I don't agree or subscribe to the fact that there should be more education. I've seen people come out saying that police need to go back to school and get a master's degree in social work or psychology. I don't agree with that. It makes me think about C.S. Lewis' quote, "When education beats training, civilization dies."
Okay.
Like, the training is a huge factor in helping our police. The training will be helpful. Higher pay will be helpful.
Okay.
More mental health services. And these are the things that are not even being looked at. Do we have a policing problem in this country? Maybe we do. Maybe that can be something that needs to be looked at. You know, how do we come to that conclusion? Do we want to come to that conclusion by creating these type of groups that can go to dinner tables and force you to put your arms up to claim Black Lives Matter? Maybe not. What does that do for society?
Now I'm gonna grab a few comments out of here as we go on.
Please do.
Taylor Smith said they didn't say Black Lives Kill, my only police matter. The point is Black Lives Matter and shouldn't be senselessly taken by the hands of anyone.
Oh, 100% agree.
Okay.
So what's more important, 7,000 blacks? And mind you, one death is too many.
Right.
One death is too many. And my heart goes out to the family. Is the 7,000 blacks that die a year from other suspects important, or is the 5 to 10 unarmed blacks that get killed by the police a year more important? Right now in Chicago, more black men have died in Chicago than Americans that died in the African and Iraq war combined.
And these are at the hands of other black men.
Other black men. Last month in Chicago, 81 homicides. 80% was black. Why is no talk about that?
No, you mean 80% was black on black, or
80% were black victims, 80% were black suspects out of Chicago.
Oh, wow.
Inglewood, one of the roughest neighborhoods in Chicago, none of that's being discussed. It's like the only time there's true discussions about the sociological problems amongst the black communities when there's a white face. That's the only time. And then when you resort to someone, when you say to someone, okay, so now let's sit and have a discussion about these sociological problems, the fatherlessness amongst our communities.
Right.
Well, the system or the white man. Okay, there goes a conversation. Like, what does that do? What do you teach your children when you have them put in this milieu, in this environment, when you allow them to think that the police are out to kill them? And that they can't be anything in this world because there's a group, an ethnic group or a system that's causing a barrier to their success. What do you do to a population like that? Do they want to succeed? Or do they think that, okay, I can succeed, however it's gonna be hard to succeed?
So we need police.
We do need police. There's actually one of the things that a Gallup poll came out in June, and it was an online survey that showed it was 60% of black folks felt that the police presence was needed where they are currently maintained, so no change whatsoever.
Right.
21% actually, we need more police in our communities. So
more police.
81% of the black community, based off that online survey, showed that no one wants to touch the police presence and leave them right where they are. Who wants to sell drugs in front of the police? Who wants to kill someone in front of the police?
Right.
You know, these aren't things that's being talked about amongst our communities, and it's very important. Like right now, there was a bill that's being proposed by lawmakers here in Connecticut that came out July 29th. It's just been introduced, which is Counseling Not Criminalization Act, which is they want to remove, in order to receive federal funding for behavioral health services in the school system, that federal funding cannot go towards towards a police department.
And you don't subscribe to that?
I'm not for that. It's like the beat walking amongst our communities has shown positive outcomes in regards to, crime decreasing amongst our neighborhoods. And that same principle can be applied to in the school system. Not too many kids want to bring a gun to school. Not too many kids want to act out in front of a police officer. And these officers have built pretty good rapport with the kids. Some
Right.
are seen as surrogate parents. Some are seen as social workers themselves. Some are seen as like a regular police officer. And studies have shown, University of Texas, that came out in 2009, showed that a school resource officer was less likely. They were less likely to arrest a child rather than a regular patrol officer coming to a school.
So you think we need cops in the school?
We need them. If we remove the police officers from the school system, and I'm not saying we don't need behavioral services in our school. We
Right.
don't. I'm not saying that we don't need to figure out why black boys are being suspended at alarming rates rather than their counterparts such as white or Hispanic. We need to figure that out. But removing the police is not going to do that. We're going to see a rise in suspension. We're going to see a rise in expulsion. All types of things. At what point do we really push back on our nuclear family structure, if there's any of it left? Because right now we have a 77% chance of being born amongst a black household without a father to the home.
Right.
At what point do we push back on our families to say what needs to get done and how can we do it better? And there's no talk of that. None. Nowadays we're putting band-aids on problems that are just degrading our communities.
And you don't think this problem it'll get worse?
Yes.
Before it gets better.
Black men are 6.5% of the populace, and we commit 52% of the robberies in this country, and we commit 54% of the overall homicides in this country. We remove the police from our communities, we will see a huge rise in massive deaths amongst blacks. I think this year alone there's been and police have been resigning from their positions, very high positions. They've been resigning just in general. And we're seeing in New York, I think it was maybe, numbers might be a little bit off and whatnot, but it was about 1,000. There's been 1,000 shootings in New York, which makes you 3 times more likely to get shot in New York than Iraq or Afghanistan. And more than likely, you're going to be black. Why aren't we talking about that?
Lenez Oroza, I think it's Orozca, said, "Do you believe that every race needs help?"
Lenise, yeah, I do believe that. The Hispanic community, I believe the number one cause of death amongst young black men between the ages 15 and 34 is homicide. The second leading cause of death amongst Hispanic men between the ages 15 and 34 is homicide. All races need help, but I don't think all races need help in a sense of, we do need help, and there needs to be some look at our sociological problems, but I do not think that should be something where as though we want to deface a statue or change the culture or remove the police presence. I think there needs to be some type of funding that we need to ask our federal government that needs to be pushed into these fatherhood initiative programs here in Connecticut and across the U.S.
Tiago Rozier, my son, said, "A white cop shoots us and we talk about us. Shit is sickening."
That's one of, and that's, I've noticed that is one of the responses that is fueling from out of our neighborhoods. When you mention black on black crime, which has been mentioned for decades,
Okay.
the response is always, well, when there's a white cop shooting a black cop, well, more than likely a person that's getting shot by a cop, the person getting shot by a cop is going to be black, and the cop doing the shooting is going to be, the cop doing the shooting is going to be black rather than white. And we've seen studies in regards to that. Roland Fryer, from out of the Harvard's first black tenure professor, conducted a study, and it's one of the best of his career, and he found that white cops are less reluctant and hesitant to shoot black suspects. So there's a strong chance that black suspects could be coming at, or even Hispanic suspects could be coming at a white officer, and they don't want to shoot they don't want to pull that trigger. Why? Maybe they'll find Al Sharpton at the doorsteps trying to degrade their character on the national media. Now,
is it times where cops mess up?
Of course.
They screw up.
Once again, we do need to situate the policing here in America. We do. But that is not the biggest problem amongst the black community or Hispanic community. Or even, it might be, it's a problem for all communities. But in a sense that we need to totally abolish the police department, which we find movements doing that now, I do not agree. It's like we find ourselves to be this copycat syndrome where we want to deface statues, we want to tear down the statues rather than learning from them and moving forward.
So the statue thing is not. That's.
I don't agree with it. Even in the 60s, the late 60s, under Mao's communistic regime, there was a cultural revolution where people started to tear down statues and destroy books and force people to announce their affiliations that are within their personal emotional interests. That resulted in 45 million people dying. What we're seeing now has already been carried out through history.
Wow.
And that resulted in death.
Taylor Smith said, then you're not reading all of them. There have been many Black Lives Matter posts in regard to the material mortality rates of black women, Army women who have been killed during service training. Y'all just want something to say. I don't know.
I'm trying to understand that question, Taylor. Can you try to?
She said, you're not reading all of them, I guess, about Black Lives Matter. And you said you don't subscribe to Black Lives Matter because...
I subscribe to the simple fact is that in Frederick Douglass High School in Baltimore, Maryland, there's 98% of a black and Hispanic populace, and 90% of black kids cannot read or write in that school, which promotes towards poverty, which promotes towards incarceration, which promotes towards all that stuff. That's my bigger concern. My bigger concern, simple fact, is that removing the police will result in a massive death of blacks in this country. That's my biggest concern. Or the fatherlessness that's promoting homelessness / poverty, or even incarceration or crime. Those are my biggest concerns. Now, why can't we tackle that first before going after the police? Is that because that's not within our best emotional interests? Is that not on our agenda? Why are we finding that every 2 hours a person is shot in Chicago, and every 10 hours someone's killed, and the suspect's primarily black? And then that's being talked about. What about Baltimore, Louisiana? Like, these inner cities are being run by these politicians who aren't making any type of discussions that can be brought to the forefront that can really help our communities. But yet you bring a white man that killed a white cop that killed a black person, the whole world wants to talk about it. If we were, Black Lives Matter is global. It's a global organization.
Right.
If we did a global organization for fatherless homes, we will see a huge increase in more black kids graduating from high school, more black kids going off to college, the decrease in the chances of being incarcerated. We'll see all that. Barack Obama said it himself, and I hate repeating this because so many black Republicans actually come out making a statement, whereas though Barack Obama in 2008, as senator of Illinois, he made the claim that if you grow up in a household without a father, you're 20 times more likely to end up incarcerated, 5 times more likely to end up homeless or commit a crime, and 9 times more likely to not graduate from school. We need our fathers. If we don't have our fathers in the home, it contributes towards suicides, which we see a rise in the black community. I think every 4.5 hours, a black person commits suicide. There's no talk about that.
Wow, I didn't know that.
None of that at all.
And you're not a Trump guy.
No, I'm
just
not.
For the record, because
I do have conservative views, which, it's a philosophical term. To keep safe means to conserve means to keep safe.
Right.
To be liberal means to be open-minded. I'm very big on tradition, the nuclear family, education, everything.
Okay.
So that's one of the things that I mean, even throughout undergrad, I've discussed these type of policies with professors, and it only resulted in me either getting kicked out of class or me having to drop a class. So
really?
Yeah, all the time.
Now, how do you feel about? Now, I know you've heard the word coon, sellout.
Yeah.
Uncle Tom.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Like, it makes me think these derogatory words that have dragged us through slavery from our white masters are being used by our own kind of people. In a sense that it's their way of responding to something that they disagree with us about.
Right.
Where does that get us?
Right.
Nowhere. Besides degrading your own kind. I mean, I get called it all the time. I'm used to it, unfortunately. You're used to it? All the time. I had this one white woman call me Uncle Tom. And I was like, and I won't say his name, but one of the guys on his page actually didn't correct the woman. I'm like, here's a white woman who degraded me using a racial term, and you did not want to correct her. And that reason being is because it's like these white liberals who are pandering to the black community as though making us feel as we are inferior. That seems to be who we agree with. But let us agree with someone who wants to strive towards the upward mobility of our communities. We'll get called Uncle Tom or Coon on a constant basis. They'll make statuses about you. They want to call your job. They want to destroy your livelihood.
Wow. Charlie Alexa said, Timothy. Let's go. Timothy Crockett said, "Denzel, you're making people uncomfortable because you're causing people to confront the truths about our community."
I think Tim meant that in a good way. I know Tim, not personally, but just do.
He meant that in a good way.
Yeah, I think he meant it in a good way. I mean,
Okay.
Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, but I did see one of the comments he mentioned about these are some of the important discussions that we need to be having amongst our communities. These are important discussions.
Charlie Alexis said, "Wow, the media really got him. The media and the system is set up to show people in the community, blacks killing each other. In a white ghetto, they do the same. Why isn't that advertised every time a white person kills someone over life insurance? They want the world to believe we're animals." So, I do believe the media plays a part.
Oh, yeah, of course.
They play a huge part.
Although I disagree with him on one of the things, because he feels as though we can police our own communities. Maj Toure, he was actually up at the pro-gun rally last year, and I went up there for Black Guns Matter.
Black Guns Matter?
Yeah, Maj Toure. And he actually says the media is an acronym for the most effective devil in America, which I 100% agree with.
Okay.
Like, at one point, it makes me think about, who was it? Because you can do a lot with psychological influence.
Right.
Makes me think about Bloom's taxonomy and his contribution towards the educational system, and how he was able to take, within an hour, one child to believe that there was a type of truth to the ending of that hour that it never even existed.
Right.
Through methods of psychological manipulation. And we see that through the media. The media can make you go out and want to gather up arms and be martyrs and take down statues and to hate your counterparts. They can do that. We see it happen all the time. And the same thing that occurred amongst these dictatorships in the last 100 years of several countries in this world is going to happen again in the U.S. It will happen. And then we're going to see who's blaming the media then.
Wow. And you didn't just start feeling this way. You've been
I would say almost a decade, I would say.
Really?
Almost a decade. I found a huge interest in self-knowledge of reading on your own and learning on your own, because the educational system has done a huge disservice to our communities. Not only to our communities, but all communities.
Do you think we're slaves right now?
No.
Not at all.
Not at all. If we were slaves, then Jay-Z wouldn't be a billionaire. Then you have responses from people who like to say, well, that's just luck. Do you really think that black people can't make it in this world? That we can't be somebody that you have to scoop down to the level to say it's luck as to why we're successful? Come on now.
Oh, right.
Come on now. We have strived in this country.
Right.
Since post-Jim Crow, post-emancipation. We've strived. We just can't. And at one point, I was looking at the factors of the welfare state playing a huge role in the absence of fathers, where Lyndon B. Johnson in the 70s went around to households, which I believe initially was to collapse ethnic groups socioeconomically.
Right.
However, it unfortunately disproportionately affected the black community first. And then, single motherhood rate is amongst the black community is about 77%, maybe 75%, Hispanic in the 50s, and the whites is 30s. And we can make the argument all day it's just the welfare state. But I would like to say it's the introduction of birth control pill, alcohol prohibition, child support laws play a role, I believe. There's so many factors and laws that's been implemented in the last several decades to even a century that disproportionately affected certain ethnic groups.
Right.
So at what point do we really start taking accountability and stop blaming the system?
And your views will never change. Because you've done the research.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's really just what's the truth?
Right.
Why is the fact that we don't find our why don't we find a way to want to seek the truth? Rather, we want to accommodate to this group thinking. Like, individual thought has totally eliminated our mental processes.
Right.
Like, no one wants to do the individual thought thing. No one wants to be the needle in the haystack. Like, once again, Rollo May, a psychiatrist, he has a book that Man Search for Meaning. He has a quote in his book that says, the opposite of courage is not cowardice, it's conformity. No one wants to do anything different. No one wants to challenge the narrative. No one wants, as Kenneth Holmes would just say, no one wants to express this uniqueness that, despite the trials and tribulations I've been through, I can make it. Out of all those people who's blaming a system or another ethnic group, how many of you grew up in a household without your father?
Right.
Where you feel the need that you want to express this self-hate, this identity crisis, where you can't take accountability for your own actions. How many of you really want to go back to your childhood and address those mental health concerns? whereas though you can be the best of your ability.
Right.
It's not a common thing. The only time you want to find commonality amongst groupthink. This individual thought is not common. If it was, it wouldn't be called racial slurs like Uncle Tom or Coon.
And do you think the black race, do you think we're disrespectful towards each other?
Oh, 100%.
And then
100%. I don't know any white person that, I mean, it happens. Listen, it happens where you have white people who want to call you these racial slurs.
Right.
It happens. Racism exists. But do you allow it to affect your livelihood? Absolutely not. You still want to strive throughout the system. You still want to be someone that you can be better than yesterday. You still do that. However, I had one situation. I was, a couple years ago, I was driving and I was talking on the phone.
Okay.
And there was a white person who I cut in front of. And he sped up next to me. We were talking shit to each other. And it wasn't affecting me. I just laughed. He's called, you said you nigger? I said, you, what I call him? I was like, I called him a cracker.
Uh-huh.
I went to work the same day and I had lunch and that was it. I didn't have to put a status on Facebook like I felt inferior.
So the N-word doesn't bother you?
At all.
At all?
Just don't put your hands on me.
Right.
That all. You know, you want to express that, go right ahead. It's not gonna cause me to not want to be better in life.
Right.
If racism is causing you to not want to strive in this society, then I think we have a much deeper problem than a white man or a system.
So we're black. You think the black race, we're in our own way, pretty much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do believe that. I hate the whole expression of wokeness. I hate.
What you mean by wokeness? Like deep being
I've like memes will come across on social media or even amongst your friends like, oh, I'm woke now. I'm woke to the problems. Like, what does that even mean? If you're woke to the problems of blaming a white man or the system, what does that mean? Are you woke to the problems that there are sociological and cultural differences that are living through the veins of the veins of the black community that's causing us to be a bearer of our own consequences? Like, what is it? Like, what is it? And it's just like that wokeness term and that the anti-racism religious movement. It's like the anti-racist religious movement is doing more harm to our society than good. It's causing us to hate white people.
Okay.
It's causing us not to look at the cultural problems amongst our own communities. It's causing so much discord in our society. Like, at what point, once again, are we really going to tackle some of the concerns amongst our own community without blaming the white man or system?
Right.
If we continue doing that, it's not going to set any standard, but lack the accountability amongst one. And we're seeing that every single day. Every single day. I know LeBron James came out with a tweeted that we fear for our lives. You don't live in the hood. You don't live in the hood.
Oh, my son is gonna love this one.
You don't live in the hood. What are you tweeting that about? What are you saying? You live in the suburbs, gated community, $1 million house. Who's affecting you? You move into the inner. Didn't they kill Nipsey Hussle because he didn't want to leave the hood?
Right.
And flourish amongst the suburbs. They killed him, his own kind.
Right.
Us. And it's unfortunate that it's resulted in. My hypothesis is that, and I'm still working on this, folks, so forgive me if it's not really clear, but my hypothesis is that people like to make the argument of proximity as to why we tend to kill each other at such large rates. Might be the case. But my hypothesis is that due to the broken home of a black child specifically, we can talk about Hispanics or white, but due to the broken home of a black child, we're struggling with this identity crisis, and because of the abandonment of our father amongst young black boys, it's causing us to kill anything that looks just like him, other black men.
Right.
Resentment is not conducive to one's overall being. It's self-destructive.
Taylor Smith said, "We need equity because the system in place has made the playing field unequal."
Equity. What does that even mean? Equity. Like, it's one thing to get equality that you and I are both humans. Right, Rob?
Now, that's what you're saying about we're blaming someone else?
Like the equity is the outcome of equality, which would never happen. You look at every culture across the board, we all operate differently for some apparent reason. I'm not a social scientist expert. I'm not. But we operate differently all across the board. And we're never going to have equity in this country. We never will. And that's one of the things that's been coming from out of our communities as well, is that rather than starting up your own business by engaging in grassroots efforts to build the wealth amongst our communities, we rather complain about this sense of equity. What does that even mean? Like, we have those from the Caribbean who are migrating into the U.S. for decades now, and they're thriving. Nigerian men are thriving. getting bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, doctorates at the same level as Asians, and whites aren't even doing it as close as them.
Right.
I think with the whites, they're not even holding more than 5% of master's degrees in this country, and Nigerians are holding master's degrees at maybe less than 20%. Oh, Asians are neck and neck with them. So how much of a system? Even one of the things that Coleman Hughes talks about, he's a brilliant young cat, 24, 25 years old, and he talks about Susan's model about how those from Barbados and just from like the West Indies, they're flourishing in this country. They're flourishing in regards to like the education or taking advantage of the economic system. They're flourishing in our country. Even when it comes to police brutality, they're barely even being affected. Small numbers, because the police can't differentiate when it comes to a black person if you're from the West Indies or you're a native black American.
Right.
So why aren't they being affected by the systemic racism? Why do they have the nuclear family?
Mike DeMeo said, do you think Democrat policies will help the black community?
Oh, I don't think so at all.
No?
I one of the Democratic policies was the affirmative action in the 70s.
Somebody mentioned affirmative action up here.
Affirmative actions in the 70s along with the welfare state. And even with the affirmative action, we're finding there's been pending lawsuits. I think they're still pending with Princeton and their discrimination amongst Asians and even whites. And even Yale has a current pending lawsuit against them for discrimination. It's like they want to hire you or allow you to come into their university based off your skin complexion rather than your skill set. There's a strong chance that I may get accepted to Yale because I'm black rather than my skills, and then by the time I get to the 4th year, I'll have to either drop out because I can't do the work. And it's not saying I can't do the work in general, but if I'm functioning at maybe 5% of my class, and those who go to MIT or Yale are functioning at 1% of their class, why would I go to a school like that? Where they function at that high level? Then it slips me into depression and want to hurt myself and want to not feel good enough. And these policies were coming from out of a Democratic populace, Democratic policies. And what does that say? Like they ponder to us in the sense of that the only way we'll get a vote is if we say that we're gonna drive this country based off your skin complexion.
Right.
Like, where does that get us? You know, it doesn't get us too far at all. It just creates racial division.
Shavai Harris said, I agree with accountability for our community, but the impact of trauma, mental or physical, is unique to the individual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And trauma's a long road to recovery, too.
Right.
Like, people think that if they were to give $1 billion to any community out here, that's going to fix the solutions of suicide or poverty. Absolutely not. These are complex situations that need to be dealt with on an individual basis. Complex situations. You know, and to think that we can just, to think that, and that's one of the things that's not being talked about amongst our communities at all either, is mental health. And that's a huge thing. It seems to be, my goodness, if you tell your parents that you're depressed, a black family that you're depressed, think you're crazy.
That goes way back.
Man, listen.
And the main one was, don't be telling my business outside this house.
Man, listen.
Right,
and then
right.
You wonder why you find your child hanging himself by the bedpost.
Right.
Because you created you created this structure amongst your household that seeking mental health treatment has been this taboo, has been something that that should not be implemented amongst the black communities. And I'm a huge advocate for mental health. Huge advocate.
Taylor said, I'm sorry, to ignore the fact that we are under oppression is ignorant. Again, you don't succumb to it, but black people aren't placing blame without cause.
Was Thomas Sowell under oppression? Was Walter E. Williams under oppression? Was Reginald Lewis under oppression? Was Jay-Z under oppression? Were these black billionaires under oppression? Or is that just luck? What do we call that? Luck?
Right.
Come on now. To make such a sentiment towards the black community is so degrading. So degrading.
So you think that's like an excuse?
Oh, 100%. If I were to sit here and excuse myself from the simple fact that, and make an excuse knowing that my ancestors went through X, Y, and Z to get to me where I am today, knowing the privileges and the opportunities I can tackle, being an individual I am, that's what's ignorant. The simple fact is that my ancestors, my grandfather, my great uncle were living on a cotton field.
Right.
In the early 1900s. And here I am as a black man in 2020 with the numerous amount of opportunities to be anything I want to be in this world. Anything I want to be. There's so much concentration on the system of oppression that we seem to forget to blame our parents for the trial and tribulation that they cause us. That pain. The abandonment from our father, the resentment towards our father, the abandonment from our mother. Well, the abandonment and from our father, but the fact that our father didn't fight for us hard enough, for our mother didn't try to help build a stronger relationship with their father. Not saying it wasn't there, that they weren't doing that, But on a massive scale, we need to start looking within.
She said, Leniz said, Denzel, Hispanic communities also suffer from broken homes, toxic environment, and hate by others.
100%.
Okay.
And that's, if I can recall, I think the maybe between the 13th or 15th leading cause of death amongst Hispanic community, amongst Hispanic men is suicide. That's one of the factors that we tend to leave out too. Like, no one talks about Hispanics in this country. No one. No one talks about any type of trials and tribulations that are running through the communities of Hispanics. None of it. It's like, well, they'll make the argument that, well, you know, they have black within them, so they're with us. Sure, we can make the argument too.
Right.
But they need to be separate from the black issues, sociological issues as well, along with the whites as well. And there's no talk of that. It's like the closer we'll get to that of Hispanics being anything remotely close to being talked about as Black Lives Matter. What about them? Why are we defacing statues and wanting to tear down these books and wanting to get back into desegregation of painting these streets of Black Lives Matter? What does it mean to say Black Lives Matter? What does that mean? Does it only matter to the sense of wanting to talk about it when police brutality? No one said it prior to Black Lives Matter. No one said it. I mean, we had the Black Power, of course. Right. But this massive global takeover of Black Lives Matter, oh my goodness, if we were to talk about that in regards to fatherlessness and homelessness in this country, it would be eradicated. Every single last homeless person probably have a home right now.
Wow.
Those billions of dollars that are being funded towards that group is going where? Is it going to reduce the chances of committing suicide amongst the black populace? Is it going towards Frederick Douglass High School in Baltimore, Maryland? Is it going to Chicago? Is it going to Louisiana? Where's that money going? Is it going to be used for, if the money is being used to go towards the fatherhood initiative programs, the substance abuse programs, the mental health programs amongst the black community, I'm all for it, but I would like to see that. And it's been since their origination 7 years ago.
Mike DeMayo said, do you think we can overcome racism by making policies based on race, like affirmative action or the new $500 billion plan for black communities?
Affirmative action, that was probably, in regards to education, even employment.
Right.
Makes me think that why was I hired? Was it because of my skills?
Because your skin color, right.
Quota. You know, and if we really had to come to that stance to really think about affirmative action playing that role, I think we need to do some rethinking in regards to who we really are. You know, because that's really frightening to say to myself or to whomever else, to yourself, to that, damn, why was I hired? Was it because I'm black or because I have a master's degree in X, Y, and Z, and they feel like I can make a contribution?
Right.
More than likely it's because you're black, unfortunately. I hate to say it, but that's what affirmative action is for, is to policy that goes strictly based off of skin complexion rather than merit. And we're seeing that in the educational system as well, while blacks are having to switch around courses to take up a different class because the class might have been too hard for them.
Okay. Christopher Duke said, one can flourish, earn degrees, own homes and businesses until the oppressors put you into their criminal justice. There's no equity in how they treat blacks.
Typical. I don't know what to respond to that. The oppression piece to me is like, to me, it's really is LeBron James oppressed? Was Michael Jordan oppressed? Was Thomas Sowell oppressed? So
you think these black these black celebrities should just keep their mouth closed?
If they were to put their focus on the sociological concerns amongst the black community, we will see a decrease in black on black crime. 100%. 100%.
Really?
100%. It may be a stretch I'm arguing here, but that's my hypothesis, and I'm going to stick with it. There's no reason the less than 10 unarmed black men that die a year is the main reason as to why Black Lives Matter is currently global.
You said less than 10?
Less than 10 unarmed blacks died in 2019. And it's
at the hands of police.
At the hands of police. Why can't we take that same approach with the 7,000 plus blacks that die a year from homicides? Why can't we take that approach? What do you think will happen if we take that approach?
Do you think that's in the same argument?
I would say,
because if you say that, they'll say, no, that's different. That's black on black crime. That's not police or the other argument is police aren't usually held accountable after something like that happens.
I do agree that our police officers across this country there needs to be a lot more accountability. I'm not in disagreement with that. I'm not in disagreement because some fact is that that the police are able to get away with certain things than regular civilians do. I mean, we
Right.
can have the argument all day, right? However, I don't think that they're our biggest problem in America.
And you said 2009,
2019.
2019.
I believe it was. I don't think I've ever seen, even since 2015. I don't think I've ever seen that number surpass white people whatsoever. And someone made this statement in regards to, whites are killing the whites the same amount of time that blacks are. No, they're not. Blacks are 4 to 6 times more likely to kill each other than whites are to kill each other. We're killing each other at alarming rates, and no one cares about it. Because for some reason, black on black crime isn't a thing. I don't know who even thought of that philosophy. Like, who are these people that were
So black on black crime is a thing.
It's 100% a thing. And when you start to remove the fact that it is a thing, we make no focus on it. None. We can't name any the black children that are being gunned down in the south side of Chicago or in Baltimore. No focus on that. None. And if we were to remove the police, we'll see a huge rise in black crime.
Anthony Ellison said, "Who are you to say what someone should call their movement? That's very white of you."
Oh, of course, that's a very white of you. Who was that, Anthony?
Yeah.
Of course. I don't know, ex-China. Ex-Mao's regime, where they tried to create these minority interest groups that resulted in the death of 45 million people by defacing statues and turning them down and shutting up your voice in regards to your inability to speak because I don't agree with you. So I kill you off. They were killing off people. We're seeing the same. They were. What was it in Massachusetts months ago? They defaced the 54th monument in Massachusetts, despite however it got there, or despite why the statue was put there and who and the 54th monument and the history of that. The fact that Booker T. Washington kids, the first 2 blacks in this country to serve a part of that 54th monument, was totally disregarded. That's our history. Why not look at history as something that you can move forward from and push forward from? Instead, we want to destroy it and recreate this structure of a society and recreate this culture and remove the traditional values. No one wants to feel American in this country. You ask the average person wants to feel American, and do they feel American? Do they love America? They won't tell you that they do. They won't. They don't love America. And then they don't look at the aspect that people from the motherland are fleeing into our country because of the opportunity that they can grow from. None of it. There's zero. There's no talk about people loving their country. I love my country. I damn sure hell do. I don't want to go nowhere else.
So you love it here.
I love it here. I will
Right.
flourish amongst my country. I will flourish and be anything I want to be.
Right.
Because my ancestors fought so hard for me to be who I am today. And I refuse to blame this idea of this oppressor in 2020.
Anthony said he wasn't responding to you. He said, Messy Rob, I was responding to the woman as it says. I guess there's a white woman up here, so my apologies to Anthony. I'm just looking at it.
Sorry, Anthony.
Sorry, I'm just looking at it. And Taylor said, I'll be wondering how black people who know so much excuse the white folks' oppression. Now, do you think that's instilled in us and it's not going anywhere?
I don't think so. I think it's gonna get worse. I think the division amongst this country is gonna double, maybe within the next 5 years. We're gonna see a lot more. We're gonna see hate crimes amongst white people. We're seeing it now. Innocent white people walking by or driving in their vehicles being attacked by mobs. We've seen this during the Cultural Revolution in China. We've seen that. And I don't think it's like people don't know the history. They don't want to read the history. If they read the history, they read it through the eyes of Sean King or Reverend Jackson or Al Sharpton. They'll read a piece, an essay by W.E. Du Bois or Booker T. Washington and have Sean King in their back of their mind, someone who can differentiate if they're white or black or who they want to stand for. It's frightening. It's frightening that we cannot read history as something to use as a trajectory to push off from and want to get better. I've never seen a populace complain so much. West Indies don't do it. The Asians don't do it. And they're being disproportionately affected at large rates when it comes to the educational system. And where Nigerians are making more than actual Asians in this country. I think that fluctuates. I believe 2018 Nigerian men were the highest paid ethnic group in this country. It might be back to Asians now. But then there's white oppression and white privilege. So,
my cousin Tashelle said, we are so focused on the big picture that we are missing the hidden agenda.
What's the hidden agenda? What does that mean? Like, people make these, and nothing against anyone at all either. I don't want.
Right. I know.
These are serious discussions where we're making these sentiments in regards to the black community that really does not much for us. There's no action behind it. When you say oppression, there's no action behind that.
They're saying you don't know about systemic oppression. Go read about it.
So systemic oppression would have been pre-Jim Crow.
Okay. Do you think it exists today?
Absolutely not.
No systemic oppression.
Absolutely not.
White supremacy.
I do believe white supremacy does exist. There are white supremacists.
Right.
But in regards to a system that's causing us to not move forward in life and tackle these great opportunities amongst our country, absolutely not. There are white supremacist groups. There's the KKK.
Okay. I mean, is the KKK affecting Black America?
I would need a really good argument for that.
Right.
For someone to say that.
Okay.
Because there wouldn't be much success amongst our black community that's thriving in the economic system. Or is that going to be called luck again? Why is it lucky when blacks become successful? Why is it not just the fact that we're gifted as human beings?
Right.
Someone said to me that, and I'm going to say this. I won't say who the person is, but someone said to me that black men equate three things to success, right? Selling drugs, number one, rapping, or sports.
Oh my God.
I never felt so. It was beyond me that they even made this statement.
Selling drugs.
And this was a black person. Selling drugs, sports, or rapping.
Really?
Not realizing that we're so much more than that. That we're thriving after we push them out of HBCUs.
Nick Marcella said, "Tell Denzel I said hi."
Hey, Nick.
So rapping, selling drugs, and sports.
Yeah, which I don't agree with. And this was a black person that said this to me.
A black person that said this.
I don't agree with that by any stretch of the imagination.
None. Do you think Trump, in your honest opinion, do you think he's a racist?
Some people like to I don't believe he's a racist. Some people like to make the argument that back in the 70s, Trump was, in regards to the housing, he wasn't housing those who were on Section 8. No, listen, if I'm a landlord and there's landlord tenant act in here in Connecticut, and I don't want to house someone that has Section 8, I don't have to.
Right.
The consequence of that may be some factors that property gets destroyed, which costs $1,000 out of your pocket.
Right.
If someone doesn't want to house certain people because of Section 8, they shouldn't have to.
You don't think it has anything to do with race?
No.
Okay. Terrence Theodore said, "What's up?" And Tashelle said he's a shrewd. Tashelle said he's a shrewd businessman. Donald Trump.
Honestly, we gotta give that part to him. I mean, America's a business in a sense, so he's been running like it's a business. He's actually one of the only presidents to have a designated office in the White House for HBCUs, so funding can actually fuel.
Obama didn't?
No. There was actually some criticism in regards to Obama and the HBCU funding, and how funding was either going to be cut or some issues with that. And then it just makes me think, like, look at that, the white man. The white man done did it, man. It had to be the white man, Rob.
Oh, you are rough, yo.
it had to be the white man.
Yo. Charlie Alexa said, You're appalled, but your examples of us succeeding was examples of rappers and athletes. But you said someone said this to you.
So someone said to me that black men only look at three things as being successful, which was the selling drugs, the rapping, and the athletes. Which, selling drugs, that's got to go out the window.
Right.
The rapping, some make it, some don't. The sports, some make it, some don't.
Right.
But we are so much more than that.
Doctors, lawyers.
All that, man. That's fueling from out of our HBCUs. There's no talk about our successes.
Wow.
No.
I'm sorry we can't get the phones tonight, but he we kind of like determined that if the phone lines, somebody calls in like, yo, you fucking coon, or that's gonna throw it off.
It would. And I think it's best that we need to hear from anyone in regards to like these sociological problems amongst our communities, without any disruptions in a sense, or without any type of derogatory slurs.
Right.
Because the purpose is that we do need help. We do need help, but not in the sense of these minority interest groups who want to pull apart this society to recreate their own. How are you not getting communist mal vibes from that? That results in all the death of these people. Dictators do that.
Right.
with these minority interest groups. Mao, they took on the communist regime, the protesters, if you will, took on his philosophies, his ideologies, and wanting to distort tradition and remove it from a society, and that results in death. This shit is death, and nobody wants to see it. And it's like it makes me think about people who are making comments about the inner city community concerns and don't live in the inner city, never lived in the inner city. About how people who are living in the suburbs making these comments about how blacks don't need the police. But you don't have to go through that on a day-to-day basis. People living in the communities.
Right.
People living in it do. Their children are having to go to that urban trauma. Right. You know, not your folks in the suburbs.
What do you think about HBCUs? Because I spoke to someone, I talked to somebody on the phone. They said this a black person thought that HBCUs was racist. What you laughing at? I mean, they thought because it's a historically black college that it's kind of like it was a racist like thought.
I mean, it's there now. I wouldn't want to make the suggestion of removing it. I don't really have a stance on it.
Right.
But I would say is that if we had predominantly white only graduations, predominantly white only clubs, I can only imagine how our society would respond to that. Is it fairness? Is that equality?
Right.
That's not equality. I mean, but it is what it is now. I'm not going to sit here and want to pull apart those HBCUs.
Right.
And rid them.
Yeah, Londa Boone said HBCUs are racist. Who the fuck said that? I had the conversation.
I mean, if there were all white colleges that primarily fueled in white candidates to their school, would that be racist?
So you think BET, that's racist?
I don't live my life on racism, Rob.
Okay.
It's difficult for me to. I mean, I don't know, Rob. I don't even.
So you don't even kind of like subscribe to the whole racism.
It doesn't affect me. I eat, I shit, I sleep.
Right.
It doesn't affect me. I don't know what world people live in where as though they feel as though there's this racial presence of the white man living in a household where as though they can't be anything in this world. You can be anything you want.
Tiago Rozier said,
"That's your son, right?"
Yeah, and you don't have to.
I mean, we could chat. I don't mind.
You don't have to. Pull no punches. You know what I mean?
No.
He said, when I'm up there, they come at me crazy, but he don't want to really be in that hot seat. I'm on my way to Stop and Shop. Anybody need anything? I'm out.
Give me rotisserie chicken, man. You know rotisserie chicken?
Yo, Taylor Smith said Terrence. She's talking to somebody else.
Comments, Rob. I'm
Melissa said, Rob, you're oppressing. You're oppressing us by not allowing calling.
That's your oppressor. That's your oppressor.
I'm the oppressor right now. So Rob is protecting him from calls. Oh wow. You're oppressing us. Shanti Stamp says, so is he saying that because issues may not affect us directly, then nothing should be said? If he's being robbed, should I not call the cops because it doesn't affect me directly? I think she's saying because you don't feel that it doesn't exist. Does it really exist?
Racism exists.
Okay.
100%. I don't think anyone would argue that. But the fact that there are these laws in place, which I have yet to see, that are causing blacks to be killed off at massive numbers amongst their counterpart ethnic group of the white man, I don't see it. I do not see it. I mean, I mentioned earlier about the numbers Barack Obama pushed out during his Father's Day speech in Illinois in 2008 about not having fathers in the home and what that contributes to our society. It's ultimately there's no upward mobility in fatherlessness homes. Granted, single moms do a great job. They become heroes in today's society, but we need that balance. When
Right.
a father's not there, that 50% of your identity is missing. You get it from your social groups. And how's that turn out?
Somebody would want to know where were you? How did you come to your beliefs? How was your beliefs created?
Looking at myself and seeing what flaws I projected onto society that wasn't going to do any benefit. And that took lots of deep thinking. That took lots of reading. That took lots of self-realization.
Okay.
And I came to a conclusion to myself that I can be more than a person that has to blame the system.
Okay.
Like if the system is such an issue as people are portraying it to be, which the system is an issue. I'm not going to deny that either. And unfortunately, government's too big, and it's affecting so many communities, even the white community, in the sense of affirmative action being one of them.
Right.
Affecting the Asians because of affirmative action as well. If it's that much of a big deal to many of you who are commenting on this matter, go out into your community or go become a cop. Go engage in some grassroots efforts. Create a small nonprofit business. Go write letters to the White House or to your local legislators in regards to you need funding to help these small businesses that can really address the problems amongst our community.
Okay.
I've always found it to be a bigger benefit than protesting. Like if it bothered you that much that there are these issues happening from here in America, go create a business. Go do that. It used to be you wanted to really change the flow of things, you become a cop because of police brutality. We've seen that. We've seen in New York. It's like 46% of the police force are black, and they're policing the inner city. Like we've seen that. We've seen where you'll primarily see a minority policing the inner city. We've seen that happening. You know, but we don't look at that no more. We don't look at some fact of, okay, if I want to change the way things are working amongst our system, I'll become a cop. Nowadays, we want to defund them, which is going to kill us off. And the defund part, I know, folks, it's not going to mean that we want to rid the police, but there are groups out there like that who want to rid the police. However, the defunding, why not ask for funds in regards to mental health services? Rather, you want to go have a social worker go out, and the most a social worker will do is do a referral to housing, or even put you on a waiting list to have an intake to be screened for mental health services. What's a social worker going to do? Like, you know, there was a study that was conducted by Dr. Calhoun, and at one point the hippies were wanting to segregate themselves from society and create their own societies.
Okay.
Right. So he conducted the study in the 60s, 70s, over a period of time using rats, which rats have organs like us, you know, heart,
okay,
liver, and seeing how they responded. Being they had the natural resources, and it was about maybe 2,000 rats who were in this type of bedroom setting, and they were fed as they should. They were able to reproduce. They were able to do everything that they would do as a regular human being would do. You know, operate in the way that they need to do, however the case may be. And he found about maybe a year after that the cap size for how many rats can be in that small community that he actually conducted was about 3,000, and they all started dying off very quickly because they had one thing that wasn't helping them, which was order and law. There was no consequences for negative behavior.
Okay, right.
So it just goes to show removing law and order in this country is not going to be conducive to our overall upward mobility. It's not going to happen. Like, if you really want to see racism amongst the police institution, tell them to get out of our neighborhoods. See what happens. What do you think will happen, Rob? If the police were to stop beat walking in our communities, what will happen?
We're fucked.
You think so?
Absolutely. We're fucked. We are fucked.
We need them.
Definitely.
We are
I agree.
6.5% of a populace. We commit more than 50% of the homicides in this country. We need the police. We need them in our schools. We need them in our streets. I'm not eliminating the fact that they don't need to be criticized, because they do.
Right.
They do, but they're not a driving force in this country that's killing us off. We are the reason that's why we're killing us off.
Oh man, you are cooking tonight.
All right, listen.
Tashelle said, Rob, he is absolutely correct. People that don't want to achieve and be all they can be will use the racist system as the excuse and the reason why they can't get ahead, but they won't move, study. Hold on, let me get. She got a lot here. Let me see if I can get the rest.
She did write a lot.
I can't click it. They won't move, study, law, vote, or strive to do better. It's like an episode of Good Times.
Yeah, listen. And it makes me think about, like, there's no Glenn Lowry. He's a brilliant man out of MIT. He's a professor. Brown. He actually graduated from MIT. He's a professor at Brown in economics, a social scientist. He talks about there's no discussion amongst our community in regards to raising our children. It's like there's no talk about it. How important it is to raise our kids in our homes. But it seems like there's no focus on what happens when there's no dads in the home. There's no focus on it.
Anthony Bernard Ellison said, "Ladies and gentlemen, the modern black male."
Listen, listen. It is not a common thing where you see too many black folks going against the grain to talk about these problems that we're facing in this country. I mean, all of them want to conform into to these groups, these minority interest groups that are pulling apart a society. And it's like these feminist movements, or the Me Too movement, or the Black Lives Matter movement, or the LGBTQ movement. Like, they're pulling apart society and taking the focus off of the individual problem. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be things that need to be addressed. What I am saying is some fact is that we have seen it throughout history that the pulling apart of a society is ultimately death.
George Sutherland said the word racism has no power anymore. C.C. Monroe said, "I'm prejudiced as fuck towards white people because they will never have to go through the trials and tribulations that my people have endured."
How do you make that sentiment? How do you say that? That is the most... CC, I love you dearly. I do. I love you dearly. But we've had these discussions. Like, how do you... I think it is... If I were to sit here and say that there's a white person who doesn't undergo trials and tribulations in their life, that is the most narcissistic thing I can ever do. Which narcissism out of the 70s was the inability to think outside your own worldview.
Right.
Like, if I were to sit there and say that as though they never had to go through anything, that is absolutely ignorant beyond me. There's more homeless white men in this country. There's more white veterans committing suicide at alarming rates. I think at one point the suicide rate amongst veterans, which were primarily white, was maybe every 1 hour a veteran commits suicide, and they're primarily white. Like, white people go through things. Hispanic people go through things. Black people go through things. Asians go through things.
Right.
I mean, did we seem to forget, unless that's been declared by Snoops because Snoops likes to go around declaring things as false, by Snoops saying that the white Irish slaves were just indentured servitude. No, student loans are indentured servitude. That's what that is. I have no choice but to pay student loans. But you call indentured servitude with the white Irish slaves in the 17th century American colony in regards to them getting their heads chopped off? That's called indentured servitude? There were kids young as 5 working in coal mines and who were falling asleep, being beaten with iron pipes. If you were caught fleeing, your heads were chopped off? Is that indentured servitude? And I'm not saying that blacks were being hung and being dragged by trucks in this country at one point. They were. But don't sit here and dismiss the fact that people who have migrated from other countries that come to the U.S. that they're not striving because they are, despite the slavery that they endured. But for some reason, it's like, what is it that's really causing the black community to have this lag in success? At what point do we stop blaming the system? It makes me wonder.
Anthony said, "Where are you getting your stats?"
Department of Justice. There's been criminologists who've done studies throughout the last decade. CDC. They're everywhere. The research is there. These are peer-reviewed studies by scientists.
Somebody mentioned something about the police. Ashanti said, "I agree that we don't do much like we should. However, I don't agree with him acting as if there aren't real issues."
Who said that there weren't real issues? Do you consider policing a real issue in this country? I do. 100%. Does that supersede the fact that there's 7,000 black homicides in this country? That the number one cause of death amongst young black men between the ages of 15 and 34 is homicide amongst other blacks? Or that 80% of homicides in Chicago is black? Is that more important? And I guess people like to make the argument, well, that the police are supposed to uphold and enforce the law. 100% sure, and I'm not eliminating that. We need to fix our police institution. We do. But there are big problems that are fueling our community that is beyond what I can even begin to articulate. But once again, talking about that, we resort to a system or the white oppression as though that's going to be conducive to our upward mobility. Like they'll mention, like, people will mention the oppression, right. They'll mention systemic racism, but have no solutions. I can give you a solution about the community, about the problems in our community. Fueling money into fatherhood initiative programs across the country, so right. that they can have more employees that can go around looking for fathers. Things like that is a huge issue. Talking about white oppression, you want to dismantle and restart a system. You sound like a communist. You sound like you were born in China. No disrespect to anyone on this in the comment section, but this is real. This is not a joke.
Yeah. Ife Toe said, "What is the history of the police?"
Well, I guess people like to make the argument about, policing was primarily towards the black community and keeping them being caught from running during slavery. Or
Right. I did see that.
But one important thing to look at is the fact is that maybe less than 2 decades after emancipation in 1863, one of the first police officers was black, which was Sam Biddle? I think it was Samuel Biddle, if I can recall. And we've seen in the last several decades where there's been more blacks joining the police force to fill that gap of diversity and everything else.
Are we sheep? Are we sheep?
Sheep in the sense of like
thinking.
I'm thinking about my uncle who was my uncle at one point told me about using terms like sheep or brainwash is like degrading. So I haven't been using that term in a sense. But I mean, in reality, it's just like waking up to these actual problems has resulted in you being called racial slurs by your own kind.
Right. Has resulted
in people making sentiments about black on black crime not existing. Are we sheep? Maybe. Are we ignorant? I'm ignorant. We're all ignorant to some extent. Can we admit that we're wrong? Oh my goodness. The only time we agree with the white person who's a white liberal is if they're pandering to the black community in regards to you're inferior, we need to help, and I'm here to save you.
Right.
The virtue signaling. That's the only time we agree with the white person. Only time. The minute a white person critiques the black community, they're racist. I'm like, okay, so which is it? Do we need their help or not?
Timothy Crockett said, people have all this knowledge about our past endeavors but use that information to stay stagnant. Lazy victim mentality. Instead of wanting to elevate our community, rather be deflective.
That's once again going back to my hypothesis, how I feel as though our resentment and our victim mentality is stemming from something much deeper than a system and rather than our upbringing. The lack of love, the lack of nurturance, the lack of being able to express yourself as a male in a home emotionally. The trauma that you endured. Like, the people don't understand the importance of when your father leaves the home, you are missing 50% of yourself.
Yeah.
What do you think happens? Where do you think you'll go? Well, what does that contribute? By the grace of God, it might be a chance you can flourish still off of that and use that pain as a motivating factor to live another day and to fight another day. But there's no look at that. There's no look at our upbringing whatsoever. None. I have yet to hear come out of mouths from any of these race hustlers in our country to say, look at your childhood. You tell me what happened and how it affected you growing up without a father.
I know how it affected me with no dad.
It affected all of us, man. Listen.
CC said, you would never be killed for sleeping in your bed. Bye. The fuck bye. Not the same. It's in that community, whereas we go through it everywhere.
There was a case that came out of I believe it was Baltimore, Maryland. Duncan Lemp was sleeping in his bed. And he was actually a licensed firearm carrier.
Okay. And
the police received some type of information. I can't recall. My memory's kind of vague here. Duncan Lemp, look him up, folks. Duncan Lemp was sleeping in his bed and SWAT shot right through his home and killed him and shot him right in his head.
Okay.
Not much media coverage at all. None at all. It's like the media is very selective in what they want to air in order to continue the stream of racial division.
Right.
Like it appears as though there's no whites in this country who endure police brutality, when in fact the number one ethnic group in this country that's brutally beaten by the police is white.
I think they did it with I think CNN did it when George Floyd kind of the it was kind of not trending. Mm-hmm. Then came Rayshard Brooks, and then they would go start looking for ones to pull up. I guess it's good for marketing, advertising.
And it might be. It's like we thrive. It's like the media thrives, and some black folks thrive off the fact of pulling out our ancestors from underground and reliving their trials and tribulations, or using the dead as a way and means as some type of political gain. It is beyond me. It is beyond me, and it's like it's strictly something in the sense that is not going to push us forward. Like preying on the dead and using their deaths as these political gains, it's not going to help us whatsoever.
Anthony Ellison said that doesn't add up. He said we're 6%. We're actually 13%. So if he lie about that, LOL.
Oh, sorry. I actually mentioned black men being 6.5% of the populace, and then the other it's 13-14% black men and black women.
Okay.
So if you cut it in half, it's
okay. Got you. Okay.
Sorry, Aunt.
Nikki B said he's pushing a lot of lies. I mean,
this isn't my information. This is available.
So they can look all this stuff up. You're saying.
Look it all
Nikki
up.
B said, "What white man pays him to lie like this?"
I wish a white man did pay me. I don't think we'd be here right now. I would have to work.
Oh man. So
other cultures go through a hell of a lot, and we know it because the first thing we say is, "Don't I know it?" So we can't dismiss the fact that they might understand our struggle. No, people understand your struggle. I think they do, but I don't think anyone can walk in your shoes.
Right. Erica Field said blacks are 13% of the population and Latinos are 18%.
Folks, the percentage I gave was strictly black men.
Okay, you cut it in half of black men and women.
Mm-hmm.
Got you.
Sorry, guys.
George Sutherland said Black Lives Matter folks would tell you that black on black crime is a separate issue. And I get that too when I have the discussion. That's not a part of the Black Lives Matter movement.
Why not tackle that?
I agree.
I agree. Why won't Black Lives Matter tackle these significant issues that are rising from out of our hoods? Why won't they do that? What is the agenda behind that? Who are these people? Rob, who are these people doing this? Like, why is there no global concern about the disparities, these significant disparities facing the black community in the U.S.? There's no, and the only disparity that's facing is just the police brutality. Right. Not the educational system, the school choice. Whereas though if I lived across the street from the Hill House, my child has to go there and have a greater chance of not graduating or even enduring the same type of curriculum. Whereas though I want to send them off to tech school, which is there's a lottery for that. There's a huge wait list. I'm a huge advocate for school choice. Like not giving blacks that opportunity for school choice is putting us in the position as though we can't do it.
All right,
and we can do it.
Ashanti said, when it's stated there's an issue, he deflects and says there's another issue. Deal with an issue at a time.
So you want to do? What do you want to deal with? What is it, the police brutality?
Well, we touched on the.
I mean, I think that person's comment was strictly. And I made the comment earlier in this podcast that it is important. I'm a huge advocate for even trying to situate our police institution. I am. We need something that needs to be done, that needs to happen collectively, but not in a sense as though we want to be a part of these small groups pulling apart a society and causing racial division. I'm not for that. That's not equality. I'm not looking for equity because we'll never see that across the board. We will never see that. If equity actually existed, we'll see black Native Americans functioning at the same level as Nigerians or West Indies, which is not happening. Their outcome of success is completely different from black Native Americans. Native black Americans.
Yeah, that's Nikki B said he's not speaking statistical facts and historical facts. Let me ask you this.
Sure.
Let me ask you this. Since the complaint is the call-ins, will you come back?
I would.
And take the phone.
I would.
Will you deal with the phone on the comeback?
I will.
There it is. Y'all, listen, he's going to come back, and he said we can open up the phone line. He just said he wanted to kind of like deal with...
Let me say, Rob, so one of the things that I've watched your show several times, Rob, and
be honest with me, please.
And I watched your show several times, and I've seen the calls are such a huge distraction, and I wanted to really get this issue across of these sociological concerns that are running rampant through our communities, and really having these disruptions, these racial slurs, these type of calls are going to be coming, and it's not going to be helpful towards that.
Towards the discussion.
Yeah, I don't mind. Listen, I'll come on again. We can have a discussion. I don't mind.
Okay. I appreciate it.
So I'm really intrigued by what Nikki B means in regards to my stats. Nikki B,
you can see those, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, she said his stats are off. He's also unwilling to have a conversation.
Tell Nikki B to call in. I'll take a phone call from her because she seems to be the one that's talking the most.
Okay, let me set this up for Nikki B. Mm-hmm. The phone goes gonna take all my.
And listen, this is.
I've already got a couple of
This is a healthy discussion, Rob. It needs to happen. I'm not opposed to it.
Rob, you're being a coon tonight, and I'm disappointed in you. Rob, you're being a coon, and I'm disappointed in you. Matter of fact, this is what we do. Nikki B, inbox me your number, and we'll call you. Mm-hmm. Inbox me your number. I won't stalk you or nothing like that. Inbox your number, and we'll call you. And if she calls, you're gonna have to put the headphones on so you can hear her.
Okay.
If she inboxes her number, we'll call her.
Would it be a lot better if I came here pandering on the Black Lives Matter and saying that's what we need to talk about and that's the way of life for us? I think a lot of the comments would be a lot more productive.
Oh, if you pandered.
Yeah, to Black Lives Matter. I'm 100% sure. Yeah, yep. and that's when it's like when you look at the solutions and the problems outside of what they're speaking of, it's like you're totally eliminated from the black community.
Ife said, looking at the definition of oppressed, were we as a people, ancestors, not oppressed?
Or ancestors were oppressed. You feel like you're oppressed in 2020? You feel like you can't go out and be whatever you want to be?
No.
I don't feel that way either. And I guess one of them.
So you said you don't believe that no one
right now,
no one is a slave, not right now.
In America, absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
I mean, there's 30,000 children being sexually trafficked in Ghana. No one wants to talk about, so maybe we can discuss that. They're slaves, black children with black slave masters.
Right. Oh, wow.
CC, I ain't mean to come for house, fam. I'm sorry.
Yo, Hill House is a great school. Lies again. There's a school.
I said choice. I'm an advocate for school choice, and the school choice is a huge lottery due to our democratic policies, unfortunately. And if we can look at that policy and try to redo it and give blacks a not an easier chance, but ways to not have to be in a long waiting list for more than a year or 2 years, then that's something I'll be on board with. But school choice is something that does exist. However, right now, if I live across the street from, let's say I'm from the south side of Chicago and I had a chance to and I have a child who I feel can do the curriculum amongst another school, that child has to go to a school where the 90% of the school can't read or write, and that primary number is blacks. I don't have a choice. If I do have a choice, it's a long wait list.
Ashanti said, wait, he just said there's no systemic issues that keep us back, but did he not just say being able to send your child to any school is a problem? He's talking out of both sides of his neck.
So with the school choice piece, I would not say that it's like I would not say that that's systemic racism. I think it's more so causing socioeconomic differences amongst our society, but not in the sense that where it is now, that it's happening because we're black. I can't agree with that.
Okay.
I need evidence that really proves that.
Okay. Gotcha.
I do believe that I don't believe it's systemic racism, but I do believe that it's systemically causing us to not thrive in the socioeconomic class. And then you look at the cultural components to it.
Tashelle said, "There's exactly what he is saying. Why are they against what he's saying as if they are experts on the psychological influence on culture? Why not just research what he's saying?" Oh, shit. Why not just research what he's saying and educate yourselves? Most of us don't support our local issues, but we want to argue with him on national statistical information. Anthony Ellison said, dude said if you're split by 13% in half, like that accurately portrays the demographics, like it's an equal amount of BM and BW in America.
Whatever that means. I didn't process that.
Do you know Anthony?
I don't. No, I don't know Anthony.
Okay. Yeah, we definitely got to get you. We got to get you back.
Listen, I'm gonna come back, man.
Will you? Because I've tried for a whole year, and you've been treating me like the ugly girl at the prom for a whole fucking year.
I'm gonna come back, Rob. I'm gonna come back. I am. I do want to come back, but I do want to have your son up here, and who is it? Nicole and
Ife. That's the lady that's saying.
I would not mind.
You would let them come in here, and you would sit with them,
and we could all answer phone calls. We could all have a nice discussion.
I don't know if we would get to the phone calls. That shit will get real steamy and spicy and nasty.
Yeah, y'all do be bugging up here too. Y'all be bugging.
Well, I don't. I get called a coon a lot because now it's like I don't think that I don't think that I'm going to be killed by the police.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't think that.
You have a 1 in 300,000. For every 1 in 300,000 people in this country, a black person's killed.
1 in 300,000.
Yeah. Wow. Like I said earlier, it's like equivalent to lightning strike, but
Ife, he said he's gonna come back on when you guys are on, and we can have the discussion.
Yes.
He said he's talked for an hour, take calls. He did a triple-double with with lies. Denzel looking forward to listen to the back and forth of those phone calls.
Sure thing.
And screen those calls, and they are a distraction. They can be, because we would get nowhere if somebody calls and, oh, you're a coon, you fucking sell out.
Listen, I've been hearing that for almost a decade, Rob.
What do we? What does sell out mean? What do you think that? What does that mean? Like we sold out to our race?
I think it's some fact is that despite the systemic, it's like you use the white man to climb to the top, and the white man was going to help you in a sense of you had to do that by portraying your own people.
Okay, like a house Negro.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I don't agree with, but
okay.
Ashanti said, "Please read my comment."
Ashanti, please. I don't. Where's it? Write it again, Ashanti, because this is Rob. I mean Melissa. He's gonna come back.
I'm gonna come back.
He's gonna come back, and we're gonna cook them phones, and we're gonna see where it goes. It would be better if this was a discussion, not a rant. George Sutherland said, "I'm that nigga that is not blind by the Democratic Party or the Republican Party bullshit." And you don't. You're more conservatives.
Yeah, I would say I'm like I said, I'm a huge advocate for family tradition. Like conservatism is a philosophical view,
right?
And to conserve means to keep safe. Like I want to keep safe our homes. I want to keep safe the fact that we need to push towards education and to look at the disparities on a mental health level in our communities. I want to tackle the big problems.
And you don't feel like you're oppressed. Like
no.
you do. You have a job.
Yes, I worked very hard to get where I need to be in life. So and it didn't even.
Did anyone oppress you when you was on your climb?
Besides my own decisions in life, no, just myself. My ancestors, 100%.
Okay.
Appreciate you, Tim.
Yeah, Tim is riding with you. We definitely got to get Taylor Smith has said is racism, not oppression.
So I would say oppression is the inability for one to move forward
because someone is actually stopping you from moving forward.
Yeah, due to some racial, type of, I would say, motivating factor behind it. But I cannot agree with the simple fact is that oppression in this country is causing us to not be successful.
Okay.
Because if that's the case, then why are Nigerians thriving in this country? Why are those amongst the West Indies thriving in this country? Why are blacks the ones that native blacks born and raised in the U.S. the ones that are undergoing these unfortunate disparities?
Right. I mean, you do have people up here riding with you.
Lanice, you gonna come on with me? Lanice is right there. And if you coming back, are you going to talk about? I do want to talk about real mental health. Maybe sometime. I don't know, a couple weeks off from now.
You can come back whenever you want, man.
I'll come. That is a separate issue. The mental health amongst our communities. I do want to talk about. Like that's a separate issue.
And you do have vast knowledge in it.
Yeah. I do.
Okay. Good. Latia sitting there says, "I'm not oppressed." I don't think I'm. Don't get me wrong. I used to think that.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you this. I'm not going to say who said this. I watched the podcast and she said it. We take pride in being disrespectful. Do you agree?
I would look at that as not as a whole,
not as a whole,
but I would say on a case by case basis.
You're right.
I would say that we do take pride in that. I think that also depends on the person, and like people really don't understand how much your upbringing really plays a role in
absolutely
in your decision making and your adulthood. So
yeah, he's gonna come back, y'all. And we're gonna take calls. I think this was good.
Yeah, me too.
This was good.
Despite the racial slurs you got on your end, but you know.
Yeah, I just got called a coon fucking with you. I'm a fucking coon tonight.
I'm sorry, man.
Nah, you're good. You're good.
But these things need to be talked about, right?
Yeah, I'm good. You're good, man.
And the thing about it is that my opposition to what they think about in regards to helping the black community, because I think we all want the same goal, is to help the black community push forward.
Okay.
However, since it's not within their field of expertise, Denzel killed this 2020.
Yo, Denzel and Candace 2024.
If it's not within their way of how I should comment on
Right.
the black issues, then I'm deemed less than they are, and I'm deemed this person that's a coon or a house negro. I'm telling you, it's the same ball game as a cultural revolution in China. Same ball game, and people aren't realizing it. And Mark Twain, I guess I call him racist too. So, but Mark Twain had a quote saying that racism does not repeat but does rhyme. We are rhyming in those exact stages of dictators who pushed out these same type of philosophy to these minority interest groups who are trying to pull apart our society.
Really?
I can't stand for it. I can't.
He should move to Nigeria. I'm sure he'd be very welcome.
I mean, lots of them are listen. Lots of Nigerians are flooding America to come here.
They're coming here and
listen,
flourishing.
Listen, I think it goes back and forth between the Asians and Nigerians. I'm telling you, like 2018, Nigerians were the highest paid ethnic group in the country. I think 2019 might have been the Asians. It goes back and forth.
I want to ask you something before we left.
There you go.
Oh, are you voting?
Rob.
I'm not going to ask you who you're voting for.
Rob.
I'm not going to ask you who you're voting for. That's your personal business.
I'll keep that one silent.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
Anthony said he's quoting Mark Twain. Oh shit!
See, look at. Did I not say there was going to be some backlash for that? I know it was.
Right.
Yeah, it's expected.
So those words don't hurt you. You're not bothered by that stuff.
Absolutely not. They're self-projecting their personal troubles onto me.
Oh,
I'm not a psychologist. I'm not Dr. Umar portraying myself to be a licensed psychologist and having to testify in front of the State Board of Philadelphia.
Right.
The city of Philadelphia. So.
Oh shit, Latia, my niece said Trump 2020.
That's their right.
That's her right. That's her right.
That's her right. You can't degrade me because my answer is fought so that I can actually have the freedom of thought, the freedom of expression, and to be able to vote whomever I please to vote for.
You ever hear people say, "Yo, get out and vote," as long as you're voting for who they want you to vote for?
Yeah, I'm like, and man, listen, it's like nowadays when you're voting. I'm definitely calling you after this. Tell you about yourself. But it's really like, if someone's going to take the initiative for you to push you towards voting, they make that choice for you amongst household. Vote for Obama, vote for Joe Biden, vote for Clinton. It's like, what is that setting for?
Did you vote for Obama?
No.
You didn't?
No.
Okay. Oh, shit.
Rob, why you do this at the 11th hour, man?
I was like, look, this dude made me wait a whole freaking year. We got to get him up here and get him. But I enjoyed this.
I did too.
This was, and you're a young man.
Yes.
And I appreciate that. You're a young man.
You, Rob, too.
You know what I mean? You're 27?
Yep.
27 years old, and you're definitely beating a lot of people that I know at my age. And so I really appreciate you. I'm not mad at his stance. I'm mad at his lies that he used to validate them. All right.
Oh, yeah. I don't know what that means. My people perish for lack of knowledge. To tell you the truth, that's one of the things that we perish from is to, and we all are ignorant to some degree. All of us are ignorant to many degrees, but there comes a point in time where as though you need to really sit down and focus on these problems amongst our community. And people who are making these sentiments aren't even ones that are on the ground doing work in our communities. They're in the shadows behind the laptop, on their keys, making these sentiments.
Wow. Girl,
why would he say though? He said he was more conservative. My views are conservative. I'm not a Republican. I'm not.
You're just conservative.
I'm not a Republican or a Democrat.
Okay.
I'm just conservative.
Okay.
I appreciate him for being civilized, but he ain't right. I'm sorry, Taylor. I am. Maybe you can call in next time.
Yeah, I think you and Taylor will be, because Taylor's a young woman, extremely knowledgeable. Yeah, knowledge
listen, Rob caught me off guard with that one. Rob, you can't be doing that, man. To vote in peace, man.
Yeah, listen, I do want to know who the fuck you're gonna vote for, but I know that's your personal business. Yeah. I would like to know, but
my uncle actually said to me, he said 3 things he doesn't talk about, which is sex, politics, and religion.
Absolutely.
I'm really starting to remove myself to no longer talk about the politics, of course, but more so who I'm voting for. Man, listen, you get a huge backlash for that one. They will pull you through the weeds.
They'll pull me through these freaking mics, yo. Tashelle Shelton said, "I support you, my brother."
Thank you.
Carl Raiders, he's definitely riding with you. I don't know if you know Carl. CC said he's genuine as fuck. So I mean, but Anthony said it's a part of his act.
They have the right to say that. Man.
That is their right.
I can't take that from them.
You can't. You're not upset by that.
I'm not gonna limit your freedom of speech. That's you.
Right.
You know. But I'm the one that's on the phone fighting the senator to look at the outcomes of these bills that he wants to push through, and he's rejecting my questions I'm asking him because they're being screened, of course, by his secretary. But I'm the one that's fighting that too. I genuinely care for my people.
Right.
You know, I'm reaching out to legislators in regards to this is what needs to be done in our communities. You know, I have a genuine care for people, not only just my people, but all people.
Well,
but yeah,
we're not doing a show this Thursday, but will you come back and sit in the hot, I'm gonna make this a little more coronavirus, like spread it out a little bit so people can, feel a little safe, because nobody wears a mask. We're about 8 feet away from each other.
Yeah.
Even though you can't really tell by this, but I measured it. I literally measured it before you came in. Like, okay, so he feels comfortable.
Man, there's so many comments. I'm missing all you guys. I'm sorry, man. There's so many freaking comments. There's so many comments.
Did you know Los Fidel?
Yeah.
Okay, Los Fidel said, this Denzel Hunter, this nigga irks the fuck out of me.
Los, listen, man. You have the right, man.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take that from you. You have the right.
You will come back.
I will.
You promise you will come back.
I promise you.
Did you enjoy this? Was this?
I did.
Okay.
I believe it was productive.
I believe so too. I believe,
despite the racial slurs, man, and
that comes. I got a few texts.
You had to be a consequence of that. I am in.
No, I'll take the friendly fire. I'll take the friendly fire for. I got to see what the. Let me see what I saw a text. It was something somebody was on my ass. I got to find it. They was on me. Hello, what the hell? I want to ask a question too. Are you taking calls? Are you not taking calls? Yeah. He said next time he come, we can do calls.
We can
do calls. We can bring more people in here, and the people that's on the show. My son, Ife, Nicole.
I'm down.
And somebody said, "Girl, he voting for Trump."
You know, there's more parties that exist outside Democrat, Republican, right?
Okay.
Like people, I could be going for the Green Party.
Right.
I could be leaning towards Libertarian.
Right.
So, but because we've been known to only know Republican or Democrat, that's. What if I'm a Libertarian?
Denzel for state senate. You ever thought about that?
I would never.
Never run.
I love my private life.
Okay.
I love my private life. I would never. Absolutely not. No. Would you?
No.
Listen.
No, I wouldn't do it.
I couldn't do it. I like my private life. I don't want them picking at my life.
I'm leaving my job that conflicts with the show in 3 weeks. I'll come. I would like to see you and Taylor. Taylor's an incredibly bright young lady, spicy.
I'm down.
Before we go, your take on George Floyd.
Oh.
Before we go, and freedom of speech. Your take on George Floyd.
I do believe his death was unfortunate. It shouldn't have happened.
Right.
I believe that the cops should be held at the and persecuted with the extent of the law. I do. I believe that the officers kneeling down on him, which was playing a role in his breathing and what have you. I think that was completely wrong. Do I agree that should have played a role in the massive spike in the protests and because people were dying post his death. They were dying.
Right.
And I don't think it should have resulted to that extent, but it seems like public opinion has seemed to play a role in judiciary proceedings. And we've seen that countlessly throughout history. But I do, Los, I seen your question about that. I do believe his death was wrong and it shouldn't have happened. I do believe that policeman was very wrong and it should have been dealt with very differently.
Okay.
Yeah. That's all I got to say.
Okay.
Oh, did you guys think I was going to say, well, he should have died?
Right.
I mean, I got a heart too, He
absolutely
shouldn't have resisted.
Everybody, thank you. I really appreciate you coming through, man. I mean,
it took long enough, Rob.
It took long enough, and I when I saw you talking your talk on social media, I was like, first of all, who the fuck is that? I'm in his inbox ASAP, and you was like, yo, I can't. Trump is your uncle. Wow. And you,
I mean, these are the consequences of speaking up about things like this.
Right.
Rob. I mean,
Okay.
I'm used to it.
and you're not offended at all.
No. I totally respect people's opinions and whatnot, so I'm not going to argue that.
Okay. This was interesting. Definitely, I appreciate you. I learned a lot tonight.
Appreciate that, Rob.
I
Learned a lot too about your fan base up here, you know. So
Yeah, I appreciate them, man. They
are. Listen, you need. I'm open to criticism. We need that. Criticism helps growth. You know, so I'm open to all that.
Right.
I'm not a type that says, well, you shouldn't be criticizing me. I'm open to all that. So.
Oh yeah. I definitely appreciate them. I definitely appreciate them getting up here, but I guess they said, you know what? Let's get him up there with some of the rough people, like, you know, my son and Ife and Nicole. Now, do you know Nicole?
I don't. I feel like there was a woman that you uploaded on, that you shared her video she uploaded on social media, in regards to she's in counseling and she's trying to get mental health services and she's finding benefits in therapy, and I don't know who that was, but you shared some video about that.
Oh, I don't know.
A friend.
But I think when she comes up here, when you come back up here and she's here,
Yeah.
she'll probably have, Ife is more or less like, okay, let me understand you.
Yeah.
My son is pretty much, you know.
Listen, I like to have discussions with people who challenge me.
Okay.
I don't want someone who agrees with me. That doesn't help growth at all. That doesn't make you want to feel challenged at all. Don't get me wrong. Like, people, okay, I understand what you're saying and whatnot.
Right.
But having someone challenge you is always productive. It's always healthy. It makes you want to grow.
Right.
You know, you challenge my mind, I challenge your mind. We'll go from there.
Girling, Dan, I'm proud of you, Denzel.
Jerling. Yeah, that's my sweetheart right there. So, you know.
That's wifey?
Yeah, that's wifey. She been looking
Wifey,
out for, you know.
that's right. Stand tall for your man. I think that to be honest with you right now, I don't know who I'm voting for.
Oh, really? You don't?
No, I did.
You could go for somebody for the Green Party. You care about the Earth's
right.
environment, you know?
Right. I'll probably get hit for that, but I don't really know who I'm voting for right now.
Yeah, I mean, either.
You know, so we'll see.
You might have to keep that to yourself, though.
I might, because I'm already been one coon tonight.
Yeah. I got the Uncle Tom.
Somebody.
throwing at me thing.
Thanks for tuning into the Medium Rare Report. The Raw Report will resume next week.
Oh my gosh.
Oh shit. I used to like Denzel. I don't
Los,
know what
give me a
happened.
call, man. Call me Los, man.
Yeah, Los
We
is
can
a
talk.
good
We can
guy.
chat, man.
I saw what Los went through,
We can
and I
chat.
think
And I want to hear a story about what he went through. I do. I do
yeah,
hear.
he that whole thing was just happened. Everybody, thank you. We appreciate it. He's gonna come back. I have to situate this studio a little more coronavirus friendly, so people are spread out more. Because if he comes back and the three people that usually on the show are on and I'm on and we have one more, I want to have it spread out so everybody's 6 feet apart and we can be safe and there's social distancing and, you know, things like that. Thank you everybody for watching. Really appreciate you.
Definitely.
Denzel, thank you, man. I appreciate you, man. Really.
Got your Rob.
Seriously. Everybody, we'll see you hopefully next week after I get everything situated and redone. Everybody's the Raw Report. Thank you so much for checking us out. Peace. We're out.
See ya.
What's up, y'all? This is Ken from the Make Me Wanna Holler podcast, and you're watching the Raw Report.
When you shop with Tay's Tasties, you can guarantee that you are purchasing quality baked goods. We have whole cakes starting at just $45, and the best part is everything is made from scratch. Don't need a whole cake? No worries. We do mini cakes, letter cakes, number cakes, you name it. Not sure if you're ready to try a whole cake order or even a mini cake order? Don't worry. Come get sliced up every weekend. Slices are only $3. Head over to Taste Tasties on Facebook to place your orders, and don't hesitate to like and share the page. Shop Taste Tasties for cakes that look good and taste better.